welcome to this BMF first webinar session for KZN. As you might know, BMF is an organization has been around for over 44 years. And the organization is a thought leadership organization with the main purpose of influencing socio-economic transformation. So my name is Philani Mapanga. I'm the deputy provincial BF in KZN. I also work with PwC in my other life. So let me welcome you to this session. Let's welcome all the leaders from other forums who have joined us. I'm not able to mention all the names, but I think like Mbosi Swangogo, the past president of APASA, is on the line. Also, let's welcome those who are executives and leaders in their businesses. Let's welcome the managers. Let's welcome the young professionals, the student chapters, colleagues. You are all welcome. We recommend you stay off camera, and there is a chat facility available on the platform, so you can capture your comments there. So we will be reading there. So today's session really is more about umkhabulo, as they say. You know, you learn from the great, those who are ahead of you. And as the quote from Terry is put on the invite, if you don't know where you come from, then you don't know where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, it's possible that you don't know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, then you might be going in a wrong way. So colleagues, today we have Musa Makunga, who has gratefully agreed to participate in this session. Musa is a founding member and the managing director of HR Matters. He is also the founding chairperson of BMF, the North Coast branch in the Richards Bay area. Musa was also recognized as a BMF Manager of the Year in 2002. And he was part of the board, national board of BMF between 1996 and 97. And then colleagues, we have in our midst somebody who's really out and about in terms of trying to change a situation in society. Musa was part of one of the co-founders of Notani Educational Trust that was really helping the communities and individuals in the Zululand area around empowering them to work for themselves so that they can fight poverty, as you know. And he also was involved in the founding of Mothers to Be program, which was more related to pregnant women and those with HIV. And Musa is the immediate past president of Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he has interacted a lot with many chambers of commerce around the globe from other countries. So Musa, we're really privileged to have you, my leader, to have agreed to share the platform with us. Are you there, Musa?
Yes, I am here. Thank you very much for that. Yes, I am.
So maybe Musa, when as we start, maybe you can just take us back in terms of where you grew up, the family situation, and all that.
Okay, thank you very much. First and foremost, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much, Dr. Mapanga and BMF KZN for giving me an opportunity to take a walk on down memory lane, because this is really what it is. When I saw Thomas' video clip, I was just reminded that I was most probably his age when I joined BMF. I think I was around 24, 26. Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity. Well, I come from Mpangeni, born and bred in that area. Grew up here in KZN. Schooled here, went to university, Ongoye. Not that we had many places that we could go to those days. Most of us were going to Ongoye. And I started work as a teacher for a short stint, and I then joined commerce and industry. I then, it was actually upon joining commerce and industry that I was introduced into BMF, and that I, right from the onset, I got on very well and worked through, as I will share with you shortly. So that's really, I'm at home. I've worked, of course, as I will indicate later on, in KZN. I've worked in the Western Cape. I've worked in Gauteng as well. Yeah.
So if you listening to that, you grew up in a rural space, and obviously the exposure to the real world was very limited. So how did you find the transition from being in a rural place, then going to corporate and moving to all those areas like Cape Town and all that?
Well, it's a transition that is very interesting. I look back at it with a great level of interest, because some people would say to you, your circumstances do not define who you are. What defines who you are the choices that you make, That we grew up in the rural areas is actually not a disadvantage. I've come to learn that it's a very, very, very big advantage. In the rural areas, we are guided by the stars and the moon and all of that. And you cannot say much about that, growing up in the urban area. So that had its own advantages, and we just wanted to take full advantage of that, being able to survive with very little, being very able to survive in very in situations that required you to be creative and innovative, that was really to see me through the many areas that people thought were very hard. We grew up under sorry.
Go on, my leader.
We grew up in a very, very, very hard environment, that we grew up under apartheid any easier. But growing up in the rural areas, not only down by the system, but you were also looked down by everyone else. So we kind of developed skills to survive where you are not welcome, almost like the alus that you find in the rural areas, And to this day, I actually think I draw a lot of my strength from, heading the goats and all of that livestock out in the Tuba areas and going to school in Nongoma, all those places, That's a talk of another day, Dr. Dr. As I told you, I call you Dr. Mapanga, yes.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear how you see the positivity around the area you grew up in. And maybe, Musa, if we get to it in terms of how do you then join BMF, and maybe you can take the narrative in a sense that, so in today's world, when you speak to the colleagues, the younger people, you speak about organizations, volunteering, and training organizations like BMF, and the first question is, what is in it for me, what I'm going to benefit from this organization. So, and so what do I get for my membership fee, rather than what do I bring to the organization? So my leader, how do you get to BMF and not be concerned about what's the benefit you're getting from BMF?
Okay. You know, I'm a very great believer in getting involved in extracurricular activities. I'm very much a great believer that there's a lot that you get out of informality than from formality. So right from a very young age, I've always supplemented what I do with something else. So BMF provided me with an opportunity of doing the things that I like and pursuing my interests outside of the formal work environment. Because there's one thing I realized, and this is still true, that the work environment is very limited in terms of what it can expose you to. As a young person, I felt I was discriminated against in terms of age. So ageism was there. When I was younger, I was told to do X, Y, Z because you are young. We can't promote you to become a manager because you are young. I then joined BMF. What did BMF do? BMF said, I trust you enough to go and talk to the student chapters at the technicons. How? They gave me a responsibility. I joined BMF. I said to BMF, I can actually start a branch for you. BMF said, okay, we have confidence in you, you can do that. I became a chairman of a local branch. This gave me access to the captains of industry that I could talk to about what BMF stands for. Now, in terms of the role that I was holding in the company, that I was so junior that I was not allowed into Menco. You know, Menco is a sacred place for certain people. I was not allowed into that. But when I went to BMF, BMF said, I trust you enough to become a chairman here, to make decisions here, you know. So, wow. Now, my work is limited. Yes, there you are. The canvas is yours. You do what you like with it. And I played it to did just that, you know. So I found that I could find expression of my thoughts, of my aspirations, of how I perceive the world, in the manner that the apartheid work environment that we were working in were not allowing us to ask any questions whatsoever. You needed to do what you wanted to do. What you needed to do what you were told to do. Yeah. So BMF then provided that opportunity for me to develop my skill sets. And as a result, you mentioned now my involvement with the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'm still running my own business. Got involved with that because I know that there's a lot that I could gain from that. So that's the kind of relationship I had with BMF.
So I think, my leader, you're talking about something very important, where in this day and age we see a lot of people who are more on a formal workplace. And if they think about extramural activities, it's more about going to gym, going for a jog, but it's not about identifying some of these social issues that need to be resolved, and then being a collective, coming together. So you find that most people they retreat and go and focus on the sport. What is your view around
I was kicked out.
People not
Sorry,
together
I was kicked out. I was kicked out. I'm back in.
No, you're here, my leader.
Okay.
Yes. Did you get my question?
No, I didn't, because I was cut off.
Yeah, what I'm saying, my leader, is that so normally, like now, you're raising an important point around the extramural activities, not going to work because work is a formal place. So when people think about extramural activities, they think about going to gym and all those things. but we still have social issues that we need to be addressing. And people are not coming together as collective and joining organizations like BMF, like ABASA, like PPF, to contribute, in terms of finding a solution to this. What are your thoughts? What make you guys, because when I look at it, the BMF we know today is a BMF that you guys made as a collective. So what made you guys being able to achieve what you have achieved that we seem to be failing as today's generation?
Well, we were kind of lucky because of the kind of leaders that we had before us. The kind of leaders that we had before us were very much driven by the idea of the collective, where the collective was above the self, where people gave off their time selflessly. I remember there is a young chairman of the North Coast branch, the BMF president, Don Kwanazi Lotundovu, would come to Zululand, on a Saturday morning, during the week, in the evenings, whatever time, to come and share with us and inspire us with what we needed to carry out in terms of the mandate of the BMF. And therefore that instilled this sense that we exist not only for ourselves, the work that we were doing was for ourselves, but our involvement outside of that was about the community that we're coming from. In fact, if you were to ask me, that other than specific programs that the BMF introduced in pursuance of its objectives, I would just summarize one thing that the leaders at that time were instilling into us: social conscience, the social conscience that it's not about you. You need to be woke to what is happening around the community. And many of us at the time chose to actually be involved with the BMF, because the BMF really provided us with the skills that we needed as corporate guerrillas, as it were, because that's just how terrible it was in the workplace those days. I'm talking about an era where in Zululand you only had one black manager who was an HR manager, only one. And as a result, he was revered by the whole of Zululand. There was one or two in Durban, in Durban, one or two. And in fact, even the one or two and a few others, a sprinkling few of others, were working for multinationals that were signatories to the Sullivan Code. And the Sullivan Code was basically saying that companies needed to transform. So we didn't have much choice. Of course, other people decided not to do anything about that. But a lot of people that were in BMF, I would say, what was being nurtured in us is that a sense of selflessness, was that sense of community conscience, social conscience, that I don't need to do these things because I'm paid. But besides that, what I've come also to realize about this life is that it's always good to, what is the word? To give of yourself where you are not expecting anything back. It's always good to give of yourself where a person perhaps is not even going to be coming back to say thank you to you. That's the kind of social conscience that we would want to see, and I think that actually kept us together. That kept us very much single-minded on what we needed to achieve. As I mentioned to you in our in our private conversation, we also lack of options clears the mind about what you need to do. The problem other people, when they have got far too many options, they end up not seeing the need, which is actually sad, because the need is even bigger than before.
I hear you, my leader. Colleagues on the call, you put your comments on the chat box. We will have a look at them and incorporate in the discussion. And Mr. Makunga, then BMF then is giving you your social capital.
Yes, one other thing that I believe very much, and in fact, I think there's even a lot written about this, is that a big part of our problem, who are coming from the poor backgrounds that we are, is that we do not have social capital that is needed in order for one to be successful in their career. What is social capital? Social capital are the networks that can give you access to opportunities. If you've got siblings that are doctors, if you've got siblings that are managers, if you've got uncles that own businesses, if you're doing a marketing diploma, it's not a problem. They're going to give you access to their business. When you finish your studies, they're going to say, go and join Uncle Joe's business. You do marketing for them. But with us, you study, and we wonder why a lot of people are not finding employment. It's not because employment is not there. It is there. People don't have access to people that can give them that access. So for me, straight away, BMF gave me that social capital that I didn't have. In saying I must talk about my background, my background, I come from absolute abject poverty. That's the background that I grew up in, absolute abject poverty. And so without the social network, in fact, there were others who were even worse than me, and you find that when you then have the BMF, you suddenly have this social capital that you can access opportunities through, that you can bounce off and find out and learn from. I recall I said to you, I ended up working in Gauteng and in the Western Cape. It was all because, when I moved to Cape Town, who did I call first? I called the guys that I was in the BMF with. As hard as the Western Cape is, Cape Town in particular for Black people, but my landing was easier because people in Cape Town are very cliquey, depends on which school you went to there. It's a fact of life there. If you're an 8-lander, you are an 8-lander. It doesn't matter how many years you stay there. But it was a soft landing for me to find people that I was interacting with in BMF. And by the way, at the same time, I was very, very active in the Institute of People Management, the IPM. So all of that provided the social capital that even to this day I still benefit from.
I think I hear very well, my leader, and I think when we started this conversation, I was talking about the question which is always asked in terms of what is the benefit to me for paying this membership, and it seems like, as you're saying, like you gain so much social capital because of the BMF, which then created more opportunities for you, even to be going and leading the organization, like your the Durban Chamber, and being traveling the world. And if you didn't join BMF, you might not have had those opportunities open to you. Yeah?
Yes, let me just tell you something that is very interesting. My first experience of business class that I will never forget. I feel like crying when I remember this. is that I was attending a BMF board meeting. We still at the old airport in Durban. Not only was I in business class, but it was very rare for us as Black people to do air travel. You know, I'm talking around about 95, 96, thereabout. Because now I was on the board, BMF put all of us in the flight, business class. There you are. I mean, a kid from rural Zululand. So the kind of exposure and development that was there, I took full advantage of it. And at the same time, I also applied myself very committedly. In fact, there are people that think my name is synonymous with BMF. That's just how committed I was. And I wasn't getting any salary from BMF. And by the way, I was also suffering where I was working, because now I was talking affirmative action, which was a swear word at the time, you know, and people were so much against transformation. That meant that there were opportunities that were not coming to my way. But such is commitment when you are looking at a bigger goal than the short-term, do they like me here? Because it doesn't matter in the white man's world. Whether you are good, you know, you are still not going to be in the long term, that is. In the short term, yes, they will look after you, but in the long term, you'll end up being like us, you know, who are making noises around transformation, who are making noises around making the workplace as inclusive as it should be.
Thank you, Mr. Makunga, my leader. I think like it's very obvious that the social capital, we come from the rural places and we don't have that social capital, and being involved in organizations and some of the structures, BMF, Black Lawyers Association, that's where you earn your social capital. So if we come to the BMF of today, my leader, so what do you think is the role of the BMF today, and what do you see as the future role of BMF? And it would include similar organizations that were formed to advance the same social economic matters.
I'll be kind of long-winded here, you know, but let me start off by saying that I am acutely aware that we are having this webinar in the month of June, which is a youth month. BMF was formed in 1976. In 1976, not necessarily in June, but that, like the riots of 1976, it was a response to a very anti-Black work environment. I mentioned earlier on that you could count in your finger, in your hand, in your one hand, the number of Black managers that were there. So the workplace was totally untransformed. Take that to 1994. It was still, you know, 30 years later, around about 1994, almost 30 years later, the situation had not changed. And however, with the foresight of the guys who formed BMF in 1976, where we were in a position to give direction, to provide thought leadership around how we would transform the workplace. BMF had the Basotho hat that gave us, who were corporate guerrillas, you know, the content around which to engage, you know, the powers that be around BMF was in a position to influence in fact, to drive the formulation of the Employment Equity Act. The first Director General of the Employment Equity Act was reported to the Minister of Labour, who was the current Minister of Finance, was Paul Makwana. And the BMF had quite a lot of contribution to make. Now, that is talking to the foresight of the guys 30 years earlier, who had sat down and said, guys, we have a response, you know, in the workplace. Little did they know that actually 30 years later, this country would change, and it would require people that would drive the change. BMF drove this change between 1994 and right up to the late 90s, early 2000, in fact, not 90s, to mid 2000. People have been, recruiting managerial leadership skills from the BMF. BMF has been providing thought leadership in this space. Well, I don't know what happened. I think, like most of our organizations, we may not know. I've been far removed from BMF for quite a while, but I won't be surprised if perhaps we had our own internal conflicts and we forgot that actually we've got a responsibility that the guys that are coming 30 years from now, 2050, they need to benefit from our foresight now. So if you ask that question, I'm saying to myself, what we're doing now, that the guys 30 years from now, in other words, guys that are not born, guys that are going to be 26 years old, 24 years old, joining the BMF, how are they going to look back and say, hey, those guys who were in BMF in 2020, look at their foresight? Because we saw that. I mean, everything that we did, we had a framework of how the workplace needed to be changed. We united in our view of how we needed to go about it. So here are the issues at the moment that we are having this webinar. COVID-19 is decimating our people in the US. It's hitting Black people. You go to Brazil, it's hitting them hard. You look around where there are Africans in the diaspora. What is BMF? Where is BMF with regards to the Africans in the diaspora? Isn't that our social capital on global terms? Apartheid forced us to look inwardly, and we've been inwardly looking for over 44 years. It's about time that now we start thinking about, actually, as Africans, we are bigger than just South Africa. We've got Africans in the diaspora. To what extent can we benefit if we start making those links? And if these links are not made by BMF, who is literate, whose members are professionals, they are educated, make sense of world affairs, who's going to make that? So I am putting it to you that perhaps the challenge that we have is to sit down and say, are we still really about managerial leadership development only? Come on, there are lots of companies now that are owned by Black people that are no longer needing to be transformed in that way. There are quite a lot of them. If you come to my business, I'm going to say I must transform. All of us are Black in all our businesses. What are you going to tell us? So BMF may have to rethink. You may be doing that already, and I will apologize if I'm already thinking that you are on. So this is about, can we rethink where we're going to be in 30 years' time? Well, some of us are not going to be there, but is there anything we can do today and will benefit the guys that are coming there? There are also, President Mbeki, in addressing the BMF Gala dinner in October 2003, he said, We are introducing Black economic empowerment in South Africa because we want to, I'm not quoting him verbatim. Let me see actually if I can quote him verbatim, because otherwise I may do him a disservice. Let me see if I can find that. He said, President Mbeki, addressing the BMF annual gala dinner in 2003, said, "We are all aware that Parliament has passed legislation on Black economic empowerment. This is the matter that would pose one of the critical challenges in the second decade of our freedom. BMF and other professional and business organizations have a duty to work together with government to ensure that we succeed in the implementation of this program of Black economic empowerment. It therefore had BMF to reimagine its vision, mission, and values so that it can become relevant to the Black community's reawakened trade aspirations. We are now realizing that it's more than employment that we can actually derive a better living." Could it be that President Mbeki was talking beyond working with government in crafting legislation, but meaning also taking direct interest in developing the transformation of the entrepreneurial space? Is there anything BMF could do to ensure our people do not become victims of the crafty fronting scheme by empowering them with knowledge and skills? Now, going back to, in fact, let me just pause here and say, a lot of us are going into the entrepreneurial space. BMF was guiding us when we went into the corporate space. Where's BMF in the entrepreneurial space? Our people are forming cooperatives, our people are forming this and that, and all of these things are foreign to us because we don't have family histories around doing this. Why is BMF not there? Why is BMF should not be limited to, let's make the Black economic empowerment, that it must have this and that. That is the legislative, that is the extrinsic approach to it. Where's the intrinsic approach to it? I'm just saying there are opportunities that possibly look at as BMF. I'm sure with COVID and with the freedoms that we have, BMF is also allowed to imagine its future. And again, going back to the Africans in the diaspora, one of the things that we need to have access to is global supply chains. Doesn't matter when you start here, if you don't have, there's just only so much that you can get out of this market. How do you access global supply chains? Are the Africans in the diaspora not perhaps going to be providing us with ready access to that? If they can't, on their own because of the circumstances they are in, would our knowledge, would their knowledge and their skills, if put together, not come up with something that could favor us? If you look at all these other nations, actually, they very much are plugged into the diaspora. The Jewish diaspora, the Indian diaspora, all of them, they are linked into that. But somehow, we feel that we can do things on our own. How short-sighted is that? Other things here, alone. I am simply challenging all of us, me included, as the veteran of the BMF, that we do need to actually sit back and reimagine the future of the BMF. We want opportunities to create wealth. We want opportunities to regain our wealth, which I strongly do believe that we once had. And yeah, the opportunities are there. It's all in our hands. I'm sorry, I've taken far long in responding to your question. Hello, I'm still there. A price for anything to pay, you know, and therefore, if you're getting heavily involved with the BMF, there is a price that you're going to pay for that. But I just do think that in the long run, you will be better for it. And I'm saying that from experience. I think I gained a hell of a lot in my absolute 100% commitment to BMF and other similar effort that I'm involved in, that I look and say, yeah, it was worth it, you know, burning the candle on both ends, because at that stage I could do that. Now I try not to the same extent that I could. And I'm saying this more especially being aware that some of you are the starting blocks of your careers. All I can say is that this is the time. Bend that candle on both ends.
I think like we are reaching the end of the session, but thanks, Musa. I think you give us a lot. We talk about developing managers, and as you say, we currently in the country talking about employers, talking about managers, because whose business are they going to manage? We're more promoting entrepreneurs, and I think I take the point around what foresight as the current generation are we bringing in on board, so that in 30 years' time, that generation can reflect back and think about what we achieve as a generation of 2020 and as such. And I think like I saw some comments from Cholani and China more around what should BMF concentrate on, and the rethinking of the vision of BMF, so that we can have a new wave in terms of what the focus is. Musa?
Yeah, I'm here, I'm listening. Do you want me to respond?
Yeah, maybe my lead, you can just give us as we try to wrap up.
Okay. You know when you are a veteran organization that you love, you love, and you don't want to upset the apple cart. You know, you from time to time and say, you know. So what I'm sharing with you is things that I would, you know, talking to my peers that we would talk about. Yeah. You know, earlier on I referred to BMF. I don't think it should confine itself with making sure that there is legislation. Because
Musa? Okay, colleagues, while our leader Musa is just having problems, so maybe just to recap in terms of what we discussed, I think committees. So it's not about really going to work and that's where and still face a lot of social issues around unemployment, inequity, gender-based issues as we're currently facing as a country, and also to be socially conscious in terms of where we are as a country in terms of South Africa and the communities where we come from. I think like for me, the point around social capital, and you can see being a volunteer in some of these forums and organizations, it assists you in giving you that social capital. So I like to encourage all of you to find a social project, something that socially you are involved in, and so that you can contribute in building the society we want to build. As Fiso, I noted your comment around the KZN leadership. I think like with the platform, it's going to be very difficult to ask the colleagues to introduce themselves. But in the North Coast, we have China Madondo, who's the current chairperson. And in Durban, we have Faran. She's the chair. And we got Tozama in the Midlands area. And our provincial chair has just relocated to Johannesburg, so I currently hold as a provincial chair, as I was the deputy. But BMF is also going to elections now in October, so we'll be electing a new leadership for the province. I think the branches, they will have their elections next year. So I'm not sure if there's any further comments. I don't see any other comments in the chat box. But colleagues, I hope you did gain one or two things from the discussions. For we will take forward and see that in future sessions we use a platform that works. I think many of us are used to Zoom now and all that. But I hope as well in volunteering and in paying the membership of these organizations, you got your answer in terms of what's the benefit.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Are you back, Mr. Makunga?
Yes. Should I carry on?
Yeah, I'm in the process of wrapping up, my leader. So maybe you can just share with the colleagues, because in terms of HR matters, what do you do, and do you have any leadership development, mentorship, executive coaching? What business are you in?
Well, I'm in the business of creating wealth for myself through through HR matters, which is a strategic HR leadership consultancy with executive search, professional placements. We do leadership and management training. I've also, by the way, you can go on the website www. An HR matters properties business that is focusing on warehousing and logistics. We supply the steel manufacturers with graphite electrode. We are operating out of Dubai Port.
Great, my leader. I think like you cutting off. But colleagues, maybe in wrapping up, I think like there's a lot we can learn from Mr. Makunga. If you look at the organization he co-founded or founded, the Notani Trust, focusing on empowering communities to work for themselves, the mother to be addressing the issues of pregnant women, and is also involved with something called Voice Vision. And Voice Vision is more around assisting the blind people in terms of them experiencing some sort of sight. So you can see there's a lot he's
Makunga, the
founding managing director of HR Matters. What we do is that we are running a strategic human resources leadership consultancy. We facilitate, we train, we recruit, we provide administrative services to our clients. I actually trained as a teacher, but at some point I decided that I wanted to teach adults as opposed to teaching kids, and therefore I switched over into commerce and industry. What inspires me about my job is that I get to interact with people with a purpose, and also seeing people progressing from one level to another, through how we interact with them, that just keeps me going. There are lots of HR people out there, there are lots of facilitators out there, but what separates each one is just how genuine, what sort of integrity comes with the things that you say and do. I'm also involved with the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry as the president of the chamber, as part of that extracurricular giving back to the community, because very often we tend to just think of ourselves, our families, and forget about what's going on out there. Particularly young people, that when they look at their careers, don't just look at that desk and that office there. It's too limiting. Get out there, the community needs you, and through that you benefit a great deal. I think a work ethic that I've always grown up with: be disciplined, in doing the things that you've set out to do.